no, but like at one point it's just gonna move into like they're just gonna hook you up to a machine that like injects you with drugs, to make your brain feel like insanely happy. It's gonna be like that one day probably. But I think right now we're in a time where, a lot of drugs are being decriminalized, which I don't think is necessarily a bad thing. I'm just saying I see a trend where the government is now regulating things like this as much. It's like up to you. Like if you want to be disciplined and not take drugs and go on TikTok all day, like it's up to you. But the government is regulating it less with like lots of, talk about like decriminalizing weed and psychedelics and whatnot.
I think it also comes from the culture of society. Um, I think that when it comes to things like tobacco, tobacco is really, really widespread to use, and children were smoking. And I don't know the exact dates, but let's say 90s and everything, or maybe before that, smoking was a pretty, I don't want to butcher the dates, so I'm not going to put dates in, but everyone was smoking and everyone thought it was a cool thing. But it's significantly gone down, especially in the Western world, at least for kids. The stigma around smoking, like now you can't smoke in airplanes, you can't smoke in airports, you can't smoke in movie theaters. Like before, you could pull out a cigarette anywhere, but the culture around it has changed in a way where all of a sudden it's more of like a thing that's looked down upon in a way. And I think the way they were able to do that was by targeting the younger generation, right? Um,
Yeah.
Obviously, by targeting the younger generation, there's still the older generation that continue to smoke, right? But I think a lot of the propaganda and marketing was based around in a way where they told kids that there's these evil guys and companies that are making money off of addicting you, and using that and a bunch of other propaganda, they were able to demonize it in a way where kids grew up and they thought that this is a bad thing. And obviously, people still did it, but obviously, it's sort of a stigma in society for doing that in public. And all of a sudden, all the old people are dead and all the young people grow up, and all of a sudden, it's improved in society. And I think if you look at
Hmm.
government regulation in terms of something that's bad for us and fixing us at a societal level, I think smoking is a huge one. And I wonder what the shifts will be in terms of the other addictors, right? Like the phone usage, for example. I think that
Yeah.
when we were, I know people have talked about this all the time, right? But when did you get your phone for the first time?
Like going to high school.
Going to high school, right? I got my phone in the seventh grade. So we got our phones
Yeah, around the same
late
time.
middle school, early high school, and that's
Yeah, we
pretty
got
much
it pretty
people
late.
our age,
We
right?
got it pretty late.
I think
Yeah.
people maybe 4 or 5 years older than us probably got it like sometime in high school, right? And now we have elementary school people. I think my sister got it in fifth or sixth grade, right? I think it's
Mm,
going more back and back and back, and we didn't
yeah.
think about it as a bad thing, right? But I think the maybe it could be me just reading more about it, but I do think definitely from talking to people that the stigma around phone usage is getting better, where people are looking like
Greater.
yeah, it's getting greater, yeah, because
Mm,
the more and more people I talk to, even older people and people that haven't talked about this before, talking about young people scrolling on like TikTok and stuff, and like 13-year-olds on Instagram.
yeah.
It's definitely become more of a concern, especially for parents who are trying to get their kids off of it. And obviously, everyone's still addicted, and parents are addicted, and kids are addicted, and everyone's on it. But I do think that in a way it's growing, and maybe we can see culture shifts in society where it can help us to get
Mm.
better. And
I
maybe
I hope that happens. I hope that happens. But I think like right now, the addictiveness of these products is outpacing the stigma. Do you know what I'm saying? Yeah, you're good.
all right, perfect. All right, bro, how you been?
I've been good. Yeah. How's India?
It's good, man. It's good. We just came here about a week ago, and we've been kind of around a lot of places. I'm in Delhi right now, so the city. But we went to. One second, I'm gonna take these headphones off. These headphones are kind of annoying. Just I can barely hear myself talk, so it just feels really weird. It
Mhm.
just feels really weird. Yeah, can you hear me?
Mm. Yeah,
Hello?
you're good.
Yeah, I just felt I
Yeah.
was sitting with the headphones, like I can't hear myself talk, so it just feels really weird. But yeah,
Mm.
went to Goa for 3 days. So there's this little state in India along the west coast. Um,
Mhm.
it's kind of like the beach town area of India. So we went there for a couple of days, but we didn't realize it was the monsoon season, so it was raining the whole time, like pouring rain nonstop. So
Oh shit. Is it
it
hot over there or no?
Yeah, I mean in Delhi it's really hot. I mean the temperature is probably the same as the US in terms of like it's on the hot US days in terms of its high 80s, low 90s, but it's really humid, so it feels a lot hotter than it actually is. So in
Mm,
Delhi it's really hot, but in where we were for a few days it wasn't that bad because it was raining a lot, so it cooled it down. But other than that, yeah, it's
mm,
nice. You
nice.
you just came back from China and Korea, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Tell me about
A
that.
lot of fun over there. Yeah, so started off, I just went to Korea for a couple of weeks with my girlfriend. And yeah, we went to a lot of places. Went to China after to see my relatives and check up on my grandpa. Um, yeah, and then came back to Korea for another couple of weeks. And here I am.
And it's your first time in Korea, right?
First time what?
First time in Korea.
Yeah, first time.
How was that? You enjoyed
It's
it?
really nice. Yeah,
What
it's like
did you
kind of
do?
futuristic.
Really?
Yeah,
I mean, I've heard a lot about
like
the use for Seoul, right? The hub.
sorry, you're a bit laggy. What did you say?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, yeah, it's all good.
Yeah, I was just saying that. Yeah, I've heard about Seoul. The city is pretty futuristic and stuff. But yeah, you
Mhm.
just stay there most of the time.
Yeah, mostly in Seoul. They have like, yeah, when you open the door, it starts like talking to you. Shit,
What?
it's crazy.
What did it say?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't speak Korean.
Oh, really? Yeah. So it just like welcomes you.
Yeah, yeah, it tells you stuff. And like one time in the house, suddenly like the wall started speaking, and then I didn't know what they were saying. I didn't know if there was a fire, but it stopped. So I
Yeah,
don't know.
that's
And they have
interesting.
like robots to serve you food and stuff.
Yeah, they're pretty
It's
high
pretty
tech. We
cool.
don't have most of that in the US. I mean, yeah, well, cause I've heard a lot about Seoul as a city. It's like that futuristic type, but I find that interesting. But it's scary because like more and more things are getting automated and stuff now. I don't know how far it's gonna keep going.
Yeah, it's crazy. Oh, have you seen that thing? Like the first Neuralink in the guy? You
Oh
see that?
yeah, yeah. He was on Joe Rogan, I think. I watched like
Yeah.
10, 20 minutes of that podcast. But yeah, what did you learn about that? Tell me about it.
Yeah, I watched the same podcast.
Oh, you did?
It's kind of wild. It's kind of scary, bro. Like,
Yeah.
I don't want to get that thing.
So what is it? I heard about the concept of Neuralink, I think a year ago, because I
Mhm.
was watching the podcast with Elon Musk on Jerry, and
Yeah.
see, I know that the initial goals of it are just for really with dementia patients, right? Or just patients that have problems with memory, at least. That's the main
Mhm.
target in the beginning, right? To help them, to
Yeah.
reactivate parts of their brain and help them a little bit. But I think,
I think this one was like a disabled person who's paralyzed like
wow.
in his bottom half.
So yeah, he
Yeah.
couldn't do anything in his body.
Yeah, like he can't even move his hands and stuff, but
And what was the outcomes
once he got the outcome,
of after using Neuralink?
um like he can control like a computer to like write for him and stuff like that.
Hmm.
Like use a computer with his brain.
So there's
It's
nothing
pretty
in
interesting.
Neuralink. So I know that often, so the paralysis can happen for multiple reasons, right? But I know a lot of it can also be parts of the brain that activate parts of the body. At least movement could be altered. So is it in any way that the Neuralink was helping, like heal or reactivate parts of the brain to allow him to move again? Like, is he able to move now or?
No, no. It's more of like he's paralyzed because of a spine injury.
Oh,
And then um so since he can't use his hands, now with Neuralink, he can move like a cursor on a computer. So he can use a
okay.
computer
He
now.
can move like parts of the
Yeah.
body as well. Okay, yeah, that makes sense then. So
Yeah.
that's huge
Yeah.
though. I mean,
But they're saying like in pigs and stuff, they or like in some kind of animal, I forget if it's pigs or like monkeys or something. Um they got them to like move their limbs and stuff
no
with
way. But they're more.
Neuralink. Yeah, and it's crazy because like the computer can control it. Like it's not the pig thinking to move their limb and now they can move it. It's like somebody on a computer moving their limbs now.
Oh, so it's we have the chip inside of its brain and we're using the remote controller to move the pig's like arms around.
Yeah,
That's scary.
yeah, that's scary.
Oh my God. Yeah, I wonder where this will go. I mean, I think that if you look at technology development in the last 20, 30 years, it's been extremely, extremely exponential, man. I think things like new technology is going to keep getting made that we're going to be so shocked by that
Yeah.
we're going to just be able. I think that the interconnectedness of the world to me is really surprising. That I can go to bed in like New Jersey and wake up here, and we have such easy like access to travel and everything. Now with this Neuralink stuff, I think the brain is such a confusing part of our human body that we don't know enough about. Yeah,
Mm.
this is really interesting.
Yeah, that's crazy.
What else you see in Korea when you were there? That was surprising to you.
No, here's one. Has to do with nutrition, which is like it's super convenient. All the meals are like prepackaged, just toss in the microwave and it's ready. But like I did have some concerns with it because everything was in plastic.
Yeah, it's disgusting. But also, isn't
Because
isn't
I mean
pre-made?
it's not processed, it's just pre-made. It's not really processed.
Isn't everything pre-made processed?
I mean, it depends on like what you call processed, I guess.
Let's see. What was like? I guess we can let's do some research here. What were some of the names of the? Do you remember some of the names of those the brands that were?
I don't know, just like search up Korean like
Let's do.
pre-cooked rice. It's really convenient though. Like at home, I need to use a rice cooker and it
Oh, I
takes a
think
long
rice,
time.
Korean pre-cooked rice,
Yeah.
like this maybe.
Yeah, that one.
So let's check the ingredients.
It's just rice, I think.
See, what is this
But they got
glutamic
some.
acid? It's probably preservative, right? Let's see.
Oh yeah, or like, probably something with the moisture. I don't know.
Glutamic acid.
Who knows?
Uh, purpose and food industry. Okay, so it's a
Taste.
taste. Okay.
Mm.
I don't know. I think that whenever I see like these pre-made things, there's always some doubt, right? Because all you have to do is put this in the microwave, right?
Yeah, it's a bit too convenient. Like I feel like there's something. I don't know.
I mean, a lot of the things like when they're invented, we don't know some of the effects of it until 20, 30 years down the line too. So it's always scary.
Yeah.
I just finished reading the book that I was talking to you about, I think last time about the processed food. And
Hmm.
I think one of my biggest takeaways from the book is how evil the companies that we talk about really, really are. I think I've read about some companies like Nestle and Coca-Cola, for example, and it's shocking.
Yeah.
We think that most of the damage they do to us happens mostly in Western countries or at least more developed countries because we're the ones who are just buying Coca-Cola in bulk and going to stores and buying all the processed food in bulk. But I found out
Yeah,
that
but they're like exploiting they're exploiting like kids and like villages and wherever, like Africa and stuff, right?
yeah, I found out
They're
that
taking out the water.
majority of their sales, maybe 80 to 90% of their sales come from third world countries, which was pretty
Oh,
shocking.
really?
Yeah,
Yeah,
like
that's crazy.
even when I'm here in India, like we've been to some more poorer parts of it when we're driving through in some of the older villages, and everywhere you look, even in these like random villages, there's signs of Coca-Cola everywhere. All the stores are promoting Coca-Cola,
Mm.
Coca-Cola.
Wow.
I think it's because it's so. I think in Western countries, there's a tendency for us to question authority and question people who tell us like this is the way things are. I think that's a culture that's baked into the foundation of America that it's the citizens rule, like the government, right? But I found out that in Eastern
Mm.
cultures, maybe you can relate, and I don't know your own household, but also in our own Indian cultures, there's a culture of always listening to the elder. Especially when I talk to people that grew up in India, like my parents. If you question what your parents said, it was shocking, and you couldn't do that, right? And that's a
Yeah,
culture that's
yeah,
baked
usually.
into, I guess, the Eastern world. So they're so easily susceptible to believing what these companies might, that these companies are doing good for us, right? Because if you look at Coca-Cola website, there's giant web pages full of all the good they're doing for society. I mean, I wonder if we can find that, right? Because they always talk about the initiatives that are going on, right? Let's see, Coca-Cola, what would it be called? Um, like giving back. I don't know.
Mm.
Let me see. Like I think these companies they try to present it as if they have like these philanthropic aims
Yeah,
to make social impact, right?
yeah, that's crazy.
I mean, I'm sure they're doing these things, but it's really mainly a cover up, right?
Yeah,
Because
I think it's a cover up for like all the harm they're doing.
I read about Nestle, you know Nestle, right? So they're when you think about
Yeah.
Nestle, I think about like mainly the chocolate chips and the chocolate brands, but I'm surprised when I learned that Nestle's actually made 100 of different of these brands that we use today. And
Hmm.
what they have, so in Brazil, as we know, that there are certain areas in Brazil that are pretty impoverished. So there's especially along the river, what's called Amazon River. There's a bunch of
Hmm.
different villages that are along that river. So what Nestle did was they created something called a floating supermarket. You got to see this shit. This is insane, bro. Second, um, Nestle floating supermarket. So they have this giant boat, right?
Oh my God,
I
that's
don't
crazy.
know, and there's somewhere in Brazil. If I go like maps, I don't want to reveal my location. Hold up.
Like just to sell junk food to like
Oh, I'll
native
tell you.
people.
I'll tell you what they do in specifics, bro. It's like let me get out of my current location. Yeah, for sure. All right. So Brazil. Okay, where's it?
Hmm.
You know your geography, bro? Where's the Amazon River? I think it's the Amazon River, right?
Oh, dude, I don't know.
Let's see. Fuck, my address is pulled. Oh my God. You gotta remember to remind me to block that out.
Okay.
Yeah, this is the Amazon River, right? And over here we have there's some main city here. I don't know exactly the one. Main city. Well, I think it's this one. I could be wrong,
Hmm.
but I believe it's this one. I think that somewhere along here they set up a factory from what I read, or some point where they're manufacturing a lot of these unhealthy foods. Then they have this boat
Yeah,
which literally goes down the river,
it's
goes
crazy.
to these villages and sells them a shit ton of this food, right? And if you go to their website, they talk about how they're doing good for society because they're these are
Mhm.
impoverished areas and they're bringing cheap food to them, right? So cheap nutrition, we think of it as a good thing, right? Because um,
Yeah.
they're so poor over there and finally they got access to more calories at a cheaper price. But really what's happening is they're ingesting a severe amount of preservatives, a severe amount of unhealthy chemicals through the food they're eating. And um the local farmers that are creating the small shops that they which they sell the whole foods that are going out of business because everyone loves the taste of these unhealthy foods and they'll go and eat more of that. And if we look at the stats, the obesity, I think this happened about 10, 20 years ago. Since then, the obesity in these villages has significantly increased. The rate of
Mm.
metabolic disease has increased. And people in these third world nations are just dying and these big corporations based in the West are profiting off it, which I just think is insane, bro.
Yeah, that's insane.
So you still been lifting in China or you've been I know remember last time we were talking about how you during vacations you always find that you feel guilty when you're not able to access like the bench in the gym. So
Yeah.
the problem when you were traveling.
I actually had a lot of access to gyms. Like, in Korea, there was one in the apartment, and in China, I got like a 5-day membership. So we only stayed there for like a couple weeks, and I could work out 5 days of those 2 weeks. So it's not bad.
You're doing the same old like type of
Yeah.
you working for something right now or
What's up?
so what type of training you doing? The same as last time, just bodybuilding and everything?
Yeah, just weightlifting. I've been going on runs lately, especially with the jet lag. I'm getting up at like 4 or 5 in the morning,
Really?
going up like just when the sun rises for like a quick run,
Nice.
start my day.
And what do you
Yeah.
think that added to your life? Like what was the main reason you think you wanted to add runs to your life this summer?
Um, I feel like I don't do enough cardio because like when I was really young, I was always running around and stuff. I didn't really train um like heavy weights, so I didn't build that much muscle. And when I discovered weightlifting, I realized that like, I can get big much faster by weightlifting than running. But the trade-off is that like low-key, I've been kind of getting fat. Like I've been losing my abs. I've been getting like less vascular. Yeah. And like going up the stairs is sometimes I'm a little bit out of breath even.
Really?
So yeah, I feel kind of fat. But so I added runs back into my routine. Um, yeah, since I don't do like a sport besides weightlifting.
Yeah, that's cool, man. I mean, I definitely solve your fat problem. But do you think that your quality of your day is better because of that? I mean, starting the day 4 a.m. in the morning on a run. I mean, I'm sure it's not as difficult to wake up for jet lag, but you think it's made your days.
Mm. Yeah, it's good. I feel like being out in nature, running outside as opposed to on a treadmill makes a big difference because you really appreciate like the world when you're outside,
And you go
because
music or no music?
no music,
Really?
like nothing. Yeah, it's um going raw for like a mile and then come back and you're like sweating, feel good, you take a shower, start off your day, you feel productive.
Amazing. And what else you do to spend your time last few days since you've been back?
Since I've been back, play some basketball with my friends, um, like wrestling with some of my old friends.
Really? You're
Not
going back to
seriously,
wrestling?
just for fun. Yeah. Yo, wrestling's so fun, man. I wish I started that earlier.
So
Yeah.
you wrestle like out on the lawn or what?
Yeah, just like on the grass.
That's funny.
Yeah, it's kind of nasty. There's like fucking like duck poop everywhere.
Really?
So yeah, I'm rolling around in that shit,
Yeah, I
but
mean, I live in a community pretty close to your house. We got a shit ton of duck poop too over there. The geese that be living there.
mm,
I did the lawn wrestling once, and it was against a guy who was probably 60 pounds heavier than me. So we kind of doing it as a joke, but
damn.
yeah, it wasn't a great experience. It was on the floor and pinned, but yeah, man, I'm
Yeah.
excited for the opportunity to do more type of sports though in college.
What are you thinking?
See, I think the biggest thing for me is that I wanted to just go back to wrestling or jiu-jitsu or something as soon as I get back, but I care so much about like putting on more muscle right now that I thought that it would be kind of a setback because the second you add in like an alternative kind of training, it holds you back in a way from focusing more time and energy into just gaining more calories and lifting more. But I think the more and more I'm realizing it now is that when I try to bulk for a period more than 4 or 5 months, I just start to plateau and lose all my gains. That I found there's a certain limit to the amount I can.
Mm,
And if I'm honest with you, when I was at spring at Petty, I was gaining a lot. I was talking about that at that point as well. Like I started eating meat, I was lifting a lot, and I gained 13 pounds at my time at Petty in spring. But ever since I came back, I've gained no pounds, no weight this summer.
how heavy are you right now?
I'm like 130.
130?
So first day, right after graduation, I checked my weight. I'm 133, and I've literally just lost 3 pounds, not gained anything. And I was really like overthinking it, really stressed about it because I wasn't sure exactly what I was supposed to do to help reverse that and fix it. And I thought that the main reason was because ever since I came home, meat wasn't my primary source of food. Like I'd get it once in a
Hmm.
while, but I wasn't making it at home because there were some complications around that with my grandparents at home and they're all vegetarian, things like that.
Yeah.
I thought that was the main reason, but even after a month of like, stressing about it and stuffing myself with 4,000 calories of vegetarian food a day and just feeling sick and
Yeah.
not gaining weight, like that was mentally.
That's crazy. 4,000 calories of
Oh, it
vegetarian
was
food
not
is crazy.
4,000 calories. It wasn't 4,000 calories. It was an exaggeration. But just stuffing yourself with food all day, not getting weight, it was like mentally pretty fucking draining. So I was able to start getting meat though, a week after that whole month of June. But I still wasn't gaining
Hmm.
anything. And I realized that maybe,
So are you eating beef yet?
well, I ate beef a couple times. I'm just sticking to chicken though.
Okay,
Main source.
cool.
I mean, all fish and stuff. I got lamb. I got lamb today, but mainly chicken is the main source.
Yo, I had some exotic foods in China.
Yeah. Like which ones?
I had I had sea snail,
Sea
sea
snail.
cucumber, um, abalone. Actually, I don't think it's that like exotic, but
Have you ever had
like
octopus?
those clams. Octopus?
Yeah.
Yeah, of course. Yo, octopus is like basic.
Is that common? Really?
Yeah, if you live like even in America, if you live like
I had it
near a
once in
beach or
America.
something, I feel like they
Yeah.
have it.
Oh,
You
I
had
thought
it
it was
once?
pretty exotic when I ate it. Yeah.
Yeah, no, it is pretty exotic. I like it. I said I put it in between like chicken and beef and how good it is.
I only had one bite of it, so I don't remember how it tastes
Mm.
like.
very
Yeah.
chewy.
Well, I think that when I realized I wasn't gaining anything, I thought I just needed
Hmm.
a break. So I decided to just come to India for a few weeks and just literally stop working.
Mm.
So I haven't checked my weight since. I'm just eating like whatever I want without thinking about it,
Yeah,
lifting whatever I want without like thinking about it, like not crazy, you know. And
yeah,
here's if it'll work. So when I go back, it'll be interesting.
yeah. I think if you stress about it too much, like it kind of occupies your mind too much. Like you're not happy anymore. You're stressed all the time thinking about like gaining weight. But if you just have fun and eat whatever, sometimes it ends up happening, you know?
And I think that's what happened at Petty because at Petty I wasn't trying hard at all.
Yeah.
I was I was still going to the gym and eating a lot, but I felt pretty easy at the
Hmm.
time. That even though I wasn't trying that hard, I was gaining a lot of weight. But in June I was trying so hard and gaining nothing. Which
Hmm.
I think to your point, like you're probably right. Like sometimes you just need to take yourself out of it for a little bit and then come back to it. And
Yeah, like if you make eating a chore, you're not gonna want to do it. It's not gonna be tasty anymore, you know?
you think that's why we struggle when we try that hard?
Yeah, possibly. But like also there's like other factors you just might not be considering, like changes in your life that you might not even notice. Um, um, yeah, I think it applies to everything. Like I've been on like a lot of planes and stuff, like very recently, and now my sleep is like really good because I'm like catching up on sleep and stuff. Usually, like it's hard for me to fall asleep, but you don't even um like realize it, but your body's always changing and like reacting to like different circumstances in your life. Yeah.
It's a good
Same
point.
for like how old you are.
I think
Yeah.
that your environment, there's so many like as you said, there's so many little things in the background you just don't know about. But we I think we adapt to our environment in a way where even changing our environment, even though we think that there's maybe one main reason that causes a major shift. But again, there's so many things in the background that contribute to like, for example, bold progress. I think that there's so much of it is unseen. So it's really hard to figure out what that is. But I think we can also use that to our advantage because I find that when I change environments, I change a lot of character. Um,
Mhm.
I found that when I started boarding at Petty, I found that every time I come back to Petty over the summer, like I feel like if you want to change yourself as a person, changing your environment is a huge tool you can use that direction.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
So I remember the first time we did our podcast back in K in the study room.
Hmm.
We started talking about philosophy, but didn't get that deep into it. And then we never really
Hmm.
touched on it again. So would you be willing to take us back?
Philosophy. Oh, I haven't been thinking too much about philosophy lately, honestly. But like we can go back to the Neuralink thing
Oh yeah, that was
because it's
interesting.
kind of similar,
Yeah, let's do
like
that.
about the future and stuff, and like what that means for all of us.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Like, yeah, what I don't want to happen is it's like the same thing with phones. Like now we can't go without using our phones or using the internet because we're going to be left behind by everybody, right? So like, I don't want something in my brain that can like control my movement and like my thoughts even, right? But there's going to be people out there that are okay with that and they might have an advantage over the rest of us who don't want it.
Yeah.
Because like the guy on the podcast, the first guy with the Neuralink in his head, like now he's super cracked at video games, you know? Because he doesn't need to, his reaction time is that much faster because it goes straight from his brain to the computer instead of like brain body computer. It skips like a step. So his reaction time is way faster than anybody else playing the games. And I bet it's gonna be like the same thing for like other things in life in the future. Like if you're, I don't know, in like a job interview or something, and then you could just like queue up Chat GPT in your brain and then say whatever you want to say. You're gonna get the job over me since I don't have that. And it
Yeah.
kind of forces everybody to get it, you know? What do you think?
Yeah. I think the integration is necessary. I don't think there will be a time in society where we won't fully integrate with whatever is the newest technology because the truth is that if we don't do it, someone else will, and we can't be left behind.
Hmm.
And they'll just continue to create the wealth gap, right? I think An example I think too is that was actually talked about in the same book was that even if the companies that make these shitty food items want to improve and make better food items, they really can't. Because even if one company steps up and says, okay, we're going to try things better, we're doing a new movement, sure, we're going to lose some sales, but we're trying to make healthier food. The second they do that, they'll die as a company and all the competitors will win.
Hmm.
So I don't think there's a way to stay away from a new technology without us all fully integrating and going all in. Because as you said, the person with the ChatGPT in his brain is going to be the one that gets the job. And another question I had for you is that I wonder what the response to that kind of technology would be in terms of fairness in getting occupations, right? Because obviously the person who has the ChatGPT in his brain will be have a higher chance of getting the job, which could be thought of as a bad
Yeah.
thing because it creates a gap and it may be losing talent or other people who don't have an equal opportunity to get access to the same thing, which is basically what America has found. The basic principle of America is not equality of outcome, but equality of opportunity, right? That we don't know who's gonna
Yeah.
win life, but if everyone has the same opportunity, then naturally the people who are gifted or naturally people who work the hardest will get the best outcome. But
Mm.
technically, a ChatGPT in your brain would go against America's primary philosophy. But at the same time, someone who has that in their brain would operate at that much more of a better productivity that they would benefit the company so much that they would benefit the economy as a whole so much, right? Which I think it becomes this divide because I think the productivity and economy that makes America strong versus the foundation of America will there'll be this huge debate. Like, do you think that debate will ever come up? Like, do you think that's a real concern?
Yeah, I think that's a real concern. What I think is like, if it's legal, like it's fair. Like, if it's legal for you to get these things uploaded into your brain, or like implanted into your brain, like, you should be able to do that. And uh, if if you have an advantage over other people because of that, like, I don't think it's unfair because, like everybody has the opportunity to get the Neuralink thing.
Not really though, because if you have different economic statuses, then we don't have an equal opportunity to get access to it.
True.
If it costs like $1,000, and not everyone can afford that, right?
Yeah, like right now, I mean, right now nobody can get it besides like people in the trials. But in the future, I bet it's gonna be the same thing as like an iPhone. These companies, they all want to make money. They want to give it to as many people as they can.
I think another analogy we can use is that there are certain drugs that are technically legal for humans to
Yeah.
take on their own, but you can't use them in the Olympics, right?
Mm.
All of a sudden, because we want equality of opportunity in the Olympics, we don't want to allow like steroids for track runners in the Olympics. So there's an example of maybe
Yeah.
link is available for
Yeah.
pilots, but in a job interview or something, you're not allowed to use it. But at the same time, the benefit the company will receive, like, should a corporation be allowed to do it the way they want to do it without like government intervention is a real question.
I think the difference between like steroids being banned in the Olympics versus like banning like Neuralink or whatever in a job application is that the Olympics is for like our entertainment. Like we make rules for like any sport, you know, just so that the playing ground's even and it's entertaining for us to watch versus in a company, it's more of like whoever can do the job best is going to get the job, you know? And it's already true in the workforce. Like, um, I don't know, if you want to like move something or like do construction, I don't know, like move bricks around, there's not going to be weight classes and stuff. Like you're going to hire the guy who takes steroids over the guy who's natural just because, he can pick up more weight. Like
Hmm.
it's different in entertainment and the workforce. But I'm
That's
sure there's going to be people who like, who want to limit like these advantages because steroids are like illegal, most of them, and or like without a prescription. So I bet similar advocates against Neuralink and stuff like that'll emerge. But you know,
that's interesting. So I guess when we think about equality of opportunity, we don't take genetics into account. That okay,
yeah,
some people are just naturally smarter than other people. We're not going to start
yeah,
like if someone has a higher IQ, that's natural, right? Or how they're raised, whatever. Someone is bigger, physically bigger and stronger, they have the better genetics, they win. But I think what makes genetics and Neuralink different is that overall, even though some people have good genetics, some people have bad genetics, it evens out to more of a bell curve, right? Where there's that sweet middle
Mm.
spot they want to get, and there's people on the extreme sides that don't really get that access to it, right? But the majority of people
Yeah.
who have the good genetics are able to get access to high quality jobs. The thing with Neuralink is that it's going to be an extremely expensive technology, more one that I guess right now we can't really comprehend, where I think less than 1% of the population will have access to it.
Mm. Yeah, there's going to be a time when that's true, but I don't think it's going to be forever. Like when they first came out with the iPhone, I bet like it was mad expensive, not everybody could get it.
Mhm.
Maybe not as exclusive as Neuralink, but
My only,
eventually it evened out.
my only
What's
fear,
up?
yeah, my only fear
Yeah.
though is that the phone is a powerful tool, but the original phones weren't that powerful, right? And it wouldn't
Mm.
be that if you have a phone, you have such an advantage over someone where it's an extreme advantage, right? And I think with Neuralink is that we're
That's true.
already showing how powerful it is, right? With one test trial, we've seen that you can control a mouse and a screen. And it's a small thing, but I think that very quickly this technology will be more powerful than anything we've seen before. And the second someone gets their hands on it, they'll exploit it to the fact that the gap between someone who has it and someone who doesn't have it will be so extreme that we can't really compare it to anything we've had before, right? And even though maybe
Mm.
10 years from now, it'll be like an iPhone where everyone has access to it. I think it'll be too long before the gap is created so wide that it's almost as if we have a different species, because
Mm.
the more and more we upgrade ourselves and the more certain people don't have access to it, there's someone on the streets who has nothing, who's homeless, and there's someone who has a
Yeah.
fancy car. At the end of the day, we feel like they're still human. Even though there's such a gap between their statuses, we never think about the rich person as a different species than the poor person. But
Hmm.
the second you start introducing things like Neuralink that can change your intelligence level, that can change your like you have superpowers now that you can do with your brain, I think it'll really start to create that divide in a way that I don't think we can compare that gap to anything we've seen before.
Yeah. I I do agree with you, but I'm looking at it more of from like the company's standpoint because they're gonna try to sell as many as they can, you know? I don't think there's that many products um where they thrive off of being exclusive, besides like maybe luxury brands or something, you know? But there's if you're poor, like luxury brands, like they won't bring you that much benefit versus Neuralink. Like, how much do you think it would go for? Like, how much do you think people are willing to pay for Neuralink? I think the demand for it is pretty high amongst some groups. If it really gives you that big of an advantage, like, you know, if you're really poor, maybe you could scrape together like, I don't know, like iPhones are like hundreds of dollars, right? Maybe Neuralink is thousands of dollars. If you're really poor and you can scrape together like, I don't know, $10,000, like working really hard
How are you gonna do
for a year.
that?
Hmm?
I mean, I guess the degree matters. I guess it matters how poor you are. I mean, I guess the degree to which.
Yeah. Yeah, but like if it really brings you that much of an advantage, like it's gonna make you so much more intelligent and like your reflexes are so much faster and you'll land a job much easier. Yeah, I think it's worth it and like a lot of people are gonna get it. I don't think it's gonna be so expensive that it's like millions of dollars, only like I don't know, like rich people, politicians or whatever can get
Do you
that.
think that it'll be pretty accessible?
I think it'll be somewhat accessible. If it's expensive, it's still like it's not gonna be expensive to the degree where there's a lot of people who can't get it.
That's interesting. But even if, let's say it costs $10,000,
Yeah.
I think the only way this makes it different is the way it can be exploited to generate a gap, which I don't think can be covered until a lot of time has passed. Because I guess before we talk about the accessibility of it, which maybe there's two viewpoints, and maybe it's really accessible, maybe it's not accessible. Let's first talk about what do you think we can do with this technology, right? Like, do you think
Neuralink.
the second someone gets hands on it, like what do you think they would do with this technology? Like, how do you think it can be exploited? Do you think it can be exploited to, like, let's say one person in the world got access to it and no one else got access to it? Would they all of a sudden become a superhuman that they can almost do anything they want? Like, they can use their brain to like hack servers, and they can use their brain to, I don't know, like have a part of their brain calculating something at such a speed that's like 10 times any computer that it's able to. I mean, I guess now that I'm saying it out loud, it seems like less likely because even computers are not really able to hack the entire power grid like that fast. But I wonder, let's say there's one person in the world who has access to it. Like, what would he do with that technology? Like, what's possible to do with that technology?
I mean, if it was me, like if I had Neuralink right now,
Let's say you did. What would you,
and nobody else does.
let's say you
Well,
did.
first of all, I'd have no stress because like all my homework, I could just like do it in my head, like mental math, all that. Um, and I wouldn't need to study for anything ever again because it's like having a computer in your brain, right? See, this is the thing. Like, you say that it'll create a gap in society between like different social classes or like who has the link and who doesn't. But I think it'll even it out if
Really?
like the majority of people have access to it. Because I don't know, like personally, like I'm trying to go to med school and I'm going to need to study a lot for like exams and whatever. But if everybody has a Neuralink, there could be some guy on the street that gets Neuralink and can just take the test and like ace it first try because he has a computer in his brain that he can just ask any question. You know, like it lessens the skill gap for some really high skill jobs.
Is that a good thing?
Um, I mean, it's good for people with lower skill.
It sounds kind of like communism that everyone's always suddenly equal.
Yeah, it does. It's kind of
That's
similar
great.
just to like AI in general. Like having ChatGPT now, like you don't need to be a good writer to write essays now. Like a 6-year-old can say, ChatGPT, like write me an essay for whatever topic. You know, it doesn't take that much skill to give it a prompt.
But I still think
And
that ChatGPT is not
yeah,
going to create that big of a divide. I still think that just because you can use ChatGPT to write you an essay and a 6-year-old can write it, that doesn't mean that the 6-year-old can still compete with intelligent people. You know what I mean?
no, it doesn't, but
I think this might
it
create a gap.
does lessen the divide a little bit, you know?
Yeah.
Because there's high schoolers out there. There's people like how many people, what percentage of people do you think can outright ChatGPT in terms of an essay?
Good
Like a
question.
decent amount.
Yeah.
Like most petty students probably, like 90% of petty students,
Not 90%,
maybe.
but yeah, the majority.
Yeah, majority. But like petty's a pretty smart school. There's like I'm just saying like in public school and stuff,
It's probably 30, 20.
like yeah, like not that many people can outright ChatGPT, but now like a 6-year-old can use ChatGPT. They're at like a high school level already, you know? And ChatGPT is just getting started. Soon enough it'll get like really specific and like it'll really like even out the playing field. Yeah, I don't know if that's a good thing. I don't think it's a good thing for people like us who have received like a good education and like invested a lot of time in studying and learning because now people who didn't invest all that time and effort can get similar results to us. So I don't think AI and Neuralink and stuff is going to be good for me or you, but for society, I think like yeah, society's going to like blow up in terms of advancements and stuff. So that could be a good thing.
And I guess we say it'll blow up in terms of advancements because now everyone has access to this intelligent piece, so we can just come up with new insights and new developments a much faster rate. Um, and also one thing I thought of is that a degree of the reason we're so advanced as a society today is because of competition, right? That since we live in a capitalistic market, we're all kind of
Yeah.
competing for our share of the pie, right? Everyone gets a different share of the pie based on the work you put in, the input you put in, and the business you create or the job you work, whatever. And we all get a piece of that pie in the capitalist market. And a lot of it's driven by competition, right? That I'm trying to work hard so that the person next door doesn't make more than me. And
Mm.
I wonder, will this start to kill that competition, or will it? Do you think it'll create more competition, or how will you think the capitalist market will
More,
respond to?
if we're using the pie analogy, if we're using the pie analogy, what I think is going to happen with AI and Neuralink is, um, like educated people and people like upper middle class people in society, they're going to get a less percentage of the pie, but the pie is going to grow like as a whole. Do you get what I'm saying?
Yeah, yeah. So
Like, yeah, more advancements in society, like better like medicine, whatever. But um it evens the playing field, and people who are once like near the top of society are leveled out to the same as everybody else.
yeah, that makes sense. But so it's basically like this is the pie before, and we all have different pieces of it. But now, like this is the pie, and we might have like the same pieces, but we all have bigger pieces. Right.
Yeah.
I wonder that what will that will do to the happiness and fulfillment of our species. I think the
Hmm.
same is a little scary to me.
Yeah, I think it brings up the issue of like, what if humans don't really need to work as hard as
Let me talk about that. Yeah.
before, you know?
Do you think even if we have these Neuralinks in our brain, do you think we'll still let's say, okay, not in the next 10 years. I think, let's say 100 years from now, we're superhuman intelligent brains. Our brains are like fully robotic, ChatGPT times
Yeah.
100. Will we still either have incentive to work or will we still need to work? What do you think?
Um, you said 100 years in the future?
Let's say, yeah, 100 years worth of advancements in our,
Like personally, I talk about this with my parents sometimes, and they don't believe me, but I think something big is gonna happen in the next 100 years, like something life changing for everybody. Like, what if I think it's possible for like everybody to not have a job, you know?
it's scary. I wonder,
Yeah, it's scary.
is that even possible in our human nature? Like maybe from a perspective of needs, we won't need to work. But I think there's a craving inside of us that we need to do something. Like the second you don't have work to do, you kind of go insane. And I feel like that's for any
Yeah.
species. The second you don't have something to do, something to achieve, you go a little bit insane. Like even if it's a poor homeless person, the thing that's keeping him going is that he has to eat every day, and he's like going house to house and trying to get, sorry, like car to car, trying to like get someone to get him food. But every single person in this world, if they're not working to achieve something, they go insane. So I don't know if that's even possible for our species. Like we love to compete with each other. So
Um,
you're saying that we don't need to work, but we could still work, but we just don't need to.
like maybe you don't need to work to survive, but yeah, I agree. Like it's in like human and like animal biology to constantly like need to do something and like improve themselves. But that's like why people love video games, because in a way it's like work. You're leveling up your character or your base or whatever, you know? But maybe in the future, like people won't be working to make a living and put food on the table. But like if their biology is telling them that they need to like work, they'll just be playing video games or like
I could see
who
that.
knows, most fulfilling.
That's really interesting. And
Yeah.
I've heard about this concept of sedation that a lot of men and women in society today are kind of being sedated in a way, but mostly men, because if we look at male biology, we have a craving inside of us to go and work and achieve things. That's this with all the amount of testosterone we produce, we have a craving to go and do shit, right? Um,
And girls too. Girls too.
yeah, girls too, but I think that there's something like unique about the male drive to just like do something. But I think the
Mm.
problem that happens in the world today is that because we have such a craving to achieve something of value, then video games kind of give us that in a way where since we can just play a video game and achieve something there, there's no motivation to do that in the real world. Which is why if we see patterns of people who play video games, it's 99%. That's I think it's more like 90% of people that are addicted to video games are men because they have such a
Mm.
craving to achieve something, and then that just puts it on steroids, right? Like You get so addicted to achieving it in that world that you can't do it in another world, right? And the sex drive for men is also a lot higher, which is why 90% of people that are addicted to 95% of people that are addicted to porn are men, right? And because of that, like
Mm.
if you look at the patterns of the same kind of people that are addicted to porn, the same kind of people that are addicted to video games, they don't do much in the real world. So if we can see in the last 30 years, technology such as porn and video games, and I guess the list goes on, social media, I think if you look at the people that are addicted to social media, girls typically lean towards more higher chance of being addicted to social media because in female biology, they're a lot more interested in terms of outcome. I think that men and women can both achieve an equal outcome if they have an equal intent and interest. But I think the interest is really key because men and women tend to have very different biological interests. And it turns
Mm.
out that a lot of women are a lot more interested in social dynamics. And because of evolution, they've evolved like these intricate ability to detect people's feelings and emotions and men just like can't comprehend. At least I've read about this and it makes sense, right? Because if we think about how evolution works, the men, since they were more physically stronger, they can use that as their strength force, right? In ways, and it's because of that, women had to evolve a different strategy to deal with that and kind of gain access to power in a way, which is why they developed a lot better social interaction skills than men have. But if we can look at all of these technologies that have been created in the last 30 years to sedate us, I could see there being at least 10 to 20 more of those in 100 years. I don't know what kind of
Mm.
technology, what kind of hormone or addiction they'll create for us. And if you are correct, there is a society where there's so much access to resources because of robots and shit, we don't have to work for money. Then I can imagine a society where the robots are the ones creating everything for us, and all of us are just sedated with like these VR headsets on in some virtual world, just constant simulation, men and women, because there's
Yeah.
ways to addict men and women in different ways.
Yeah, I see that. I see that. Um,
Isn't that scary, bro?
yeah, I'll go back to that point you made about like men and women in a second. But like first I'll speak out about the future and stuff. I think it's kind of like that's already happened in society in terms of like if you look at drugs and stuff and uh like opioids and like people didn't have all that stuff like when they were cavemen, you know? And these are all like relatively recent things, all these like hard drugs and this recent stuff. And there's already people who like live their entire lives like hijacking their reward system to give them pleasure through like basically like our technology and stuff. And it's becoming more and more normalized to um or like common to be doing stuff like that. And it's even present in our lives today in like social media and um video games, all that. I don't think it's a big jump to say that, you know, if they come up with a Neuralink you could just put in your brain, people are just gonna like imagine like Instagram reels all day in their head, you know?
Oh, yeah, I don't think they would do that, but I guess the point I made was not related to Neuralink. It was more related
Yeah.
to a supposed future where we have no need to work.
Mm.
Because then
I
that's
mean,
all day, right?
tell me like what would you do if you didn't need to work, what would you do?
Well, me, if we're talking about like currently right now, I mean, there are different
Yeah.
types of goals besides work for money that I want to achieve, right? Like I'm not making any money off the podcast. I find joy in creating that, right? I don't I love going to the gym. I love exercising, right? So if it was right now and there's no need for me to work, I would find other ways to achieve something in a way. But and I think that most people in this world are similar in a way. Like you'd probably say the same thing, right? You go to the gym, you'd focus on bodybuilding, you're focused on nutrition because you have genuine interest in that.
Mhm.
And you may be able to do it in more
Yeah.
of a way now that there's no need for an occupation, right? And I think that I do have hope for humanity that I don't think everyone's sitting in the room playing video games. And I don't think video games, I'm not trying to demonize video games either, but I'm talking about more about the percentage of people that spend over like 6 hours a day playing video games, right? Those are like I'd call addicted, right? If you play an hour or two a week, like I don't think it's a problem. But what I think is that today, if you ask me that question, and most people would respond with something that's healthy and productive, because I don't think we've gone off the rails yet. Maybe
Mm.
20% of people respond by playing video games all day, but I still am a little bit fearful because I think the world today and 100 years from now will be different to the point where the technology is so powerful. you can't stop yourself.
Yeah, like I already feel it with Instagram and stuff. It's hard to get off, you know. Um, it's already very addicting. So if I don't need to do work, if I didn't need to do work and I and there was like better like stimulation, like better video games, better reels. To be completely honest, I think I'd probably just go to the gym for like a couple hours a day and then like just be on entertainment for the rest. And
Like
that's like coming from somebody like
Netflix,
I think of myself as
what do you
like
define as entertainment? Just like TikToks and stuff.
like yeah, like TikTok games, like whatever else happens in the future, you know? Because right now my schedule is like do work for college and like learn stuff and gym. But like if I don't need to do work, then all that learning is like kind of irrelevant, you know? Why do I need to email all my colleges and stuff if I don't need a job in the future, right? I just want to have fun, you know? And
Yeah.
this is kind of pretty like I think I'm pretty disciplined in like a lot of things. So I think that's like the honest response of a lot of people if they didn't need to work for money is they just try to have fun.
Yeah.
Um,
I don't think having fun
yeah,
is a bad thing either. Like there have been periods in my life where I've just tried to optimize for having fun, but I guess
yeah,
the problem comes when I guess majority of the day you're spent in that entertainment mode, right?
yeah.
Majority of the day, I'd say. Like not even I think even if you do it a little bit, it's fine. But I think the future I close my eyes and see is that everyone's in like, these cubicles with like screens all around them and like these VR headsets on.
Yeah, yo, I've seen stuff like that too. It's like kind of scary. Like you're just in a room and they like, I don't know, they have like a tube stuck to your mouth to like feed you bugs or whatever.
Bugs?
You're just locked in.
Why bugs?
Oh, have you heard that thing? Like in the future, like all our proteins gonna be bugs and stuff
Why's
because
that?
it's like because you can grow bugs like way easier than you can grow a cow or like a chicken. The amount of farmland to grow uh like crops to feed the animals is way more than for bugs. So like in the future if there's like like 20 billion people or something, you need like protein, it's gonna come from bugs. So they just fucking like hook up a tube to you and like you got a VR headset on.
I feel like
And that's how you
if they were to use bugs as a protein source, there'd be a lot of processing in there. So I think I was gonna say that one that tastes like shit, like everyone's gonna loves the taste of chicken, but the second they put flavoring in there and stuff, they're like, no one gives a fuck, but just eat the fucking bugs.
yo I mean, yeah, right now it's gonna taste like shit, but in the future I bet like Neuralink can make you think it tastes like I
That's
don't know, birthday cake.
because most of taste is just um like mental, right? The connection
Yeah,
of
taste is just like chemicals in your brain, in your mouth. So yeah, I'm sure they could like work around it.
I mean,
But yeah, it's kind of scary.
if
It's
someone came up to
scary
you and
from
said,
my perspective.
no more steaks, no more chickens, just bugs, what would you say?
Yeah.
Yeah, man. I mean,
Mm.
I think that I guess another thing we talk about is the role of government regulation in all this. Like,
Hmm.
if it does come to the point where the supposed future becomes a reality, should it be government's duty to come in and stop it? And why
Mm.
not?
I don't think they can. Like, say America steps in and says like Neuralink is like too much. It's gonna lead to like the downfall of society. Like people are gonna be addicted to I don't know, like being just in their head with Neuralink all day, or like or like we don't want a future where we're just hooked up to a machine feeding us bugs and like watching VR all day, right? And maybe the government realizes this and we the people like we don't want that, so we vote against Neuralink for allowing Neuralink and like similar technologies. But like we can't do that because there's other countries that will. It comes back to like competition, and if you don't use the technology, you're going to be left behind. Like say America legislates like you can't use Neuralink, you can't use like I don't know, all these crazy new entertainment devices, but China says that like you can. Well, people in China are going to be like, you know, everybody has ChatGPT hooked up to their brain. They're gonna surpass us and then um like take over or whatever, you know? So like governments can't really regulate that, I feel like.
Yeah.
Or if they did, there's gonna be areas of the world that aren't regulating it and they're just gonna outpace us.
I feel like I'm not too worried about Neuralink though.
And not Neuralink. Well then what are you worried about? What was your like government regulation thing? Nutrition wise, I mean?
I guess the supposed technologies 100 years in the future that are designed to sedate us. Like video games 100.0. Whatever that means, like
Thing
VR.
is like they're already trying to sedate us with like Instagram and like TikTok or whatever.
Imagine
They're
Instagram,
regulating it.
but it's 100 times more addictive, and it's in VR, and it's like you can feel it on your whole
Yeah.
body, you can feel it in your feet. Or porn where like there's like a sensor or some shit. I don't fucking know. That's
Yeah.
maybe porn that has
No,
like,
like,
porn that's connected to Neuralink that alters like the brain chemicals of your brain. They can like feel even more realistic. Like, bro, can they regulate that?
yeah, that's crazy. No, but like at one point it's just gonna move into like they're just gonna hook you up to a machine that like injects you with drugs, to make your brain feel like insanely happy. It's gonna be like that one day probably. But I think right now we're in a time where, a lot of drugs are being decriminalized, which I don't think is necessarily a bad thing. I'm just saying I see a trend where the government is now regulating things like this as much. It's like up to you. Like if you want to be disciplined and not take drugs and go on TikTok all day, like it's up to you. But the government is regulating it less with like lots of, talk about like decriminalizing weed and psychedelics and whatnot.
I think it also comes from the culture of society. Um, I think that when it comes to things like tobacco, tobacco was really widespread to use, and children were smoking, and I don't know the exact dates, but let's say 90s and everything, or maybe before that, smoking was a pretty. I don't want to bunch of the dates. So I'm not going to put dates in, but everyone was smoking, and everyone thought it was a cool thing. But it's significantly gone down, especially in the Western world, at least for kids. The stigma around smoking, like now you can't smoke in airplanes, you can't smoke in airports, you can't smoke in movie theaters. Like before, you could pull out a cigarette anywhere, but the culture around it has changed in a way where all of a sudden it's more of like a thing that's looked down upon in a way. And I think the way they were able to do that was by targeting the younger generation, right? Um,
Yeah.
Obviously by targeting the younger generation, there's still the older generation that continue to smoke, right? But I think a lot of the propaganda and marketing was based around in a way where they told kids that there's these evil guys and companies that are making money off of addicting you, and using that and a bunch of other propaganda, they were able to demonize it in a way where kids grew up and they thought that this is a bad thing. And obviously people still did it, but obviously it's sort of a stigma in society for doing it out in public. And all of a sudden all the old people are dead and all the young people grow up, and all of a sudden it's improved in society. And I think if you look at
Mhm.
government regulation in terms of something that's bad for us and fixing us at a societal level, I think smoking is a huge one. And I wonder what the shifts will be in terms of the other addictors, right? Like the phone usage, for example. I think that
Yeah.
when we were, I know people have talked about this all the time, right? But when did you get your phone for the first time?
Like going to high school.
Going to high school, right? I got my phone in like seventh grade. So we got our phones
Yeah, around the same
late
time.
middle school, early high school, and that's
Yeah,
true
we got it
for
pretty
people
late.
our age,
We got
right?
it pretty late.
I think
Yeah.
people maybe 4 or 5 years older than us probably got it like sometime in high school, right? And now we have elementary school people. I think my sister got it in fifth or sixth grade, right? I think it's
Mm,
going more back and back and back, and we didn't
yeah.
think about it as a bad thing, right? But I think the maybe it could be me just reading more about it, but I do think definitely from talking to people that the stigma around phone usage is getting better, where people are looking.
Greater.
Yeah, it's getting greater. Yeah, because
Mm,
the more and more people I talk to, even older people and people that haven't talked about this before, talking about young people scrolling on like TikTok and stuff, and like 13-year-olds on Instagram.
yeah.
It's definitely become more of a concern, especially for parents who are trying to get their kids off of it. And obviously, everyone's still addicted, and parents are addicted, and kids are addicted, and everyone's on it. But I do think that in a way it's growing, and maybe we can see culture shifts in society where it can help us to get
Mm.
better, and maybe
I hope that happens. I hope that happens. But I think like right now, the addictiveness of these products is outpacing the the stigma. You know what I'm saying? Like I'm more worried about my phone. Like I'm talking about my own phone usage, right? I'm more worried right now than I was like 2 or 3 years ago. But I see myself using my phone more than 2 or 3 years ago. And it's like the same thing with like, the society as a whole. Like parents are probably more worried now, but like it's even more unavoidable to see your kids scrolling TikTok and stuff, you know?
Yeah. You ever thought about what you can do with your own kids?
Um, I mean, they're definitely not gonna get like an iPad or iPhone like before they're like in middle school because like I see little kids in restaurants sometimes that are still in like the booster seat in the restaurant and they're on an iPad. That's crazy to me. Like I know that's messing with them. That's like frying their brain. But at the same time they need to learn how to use like AI and stuff because it's gonna be pretty big. They're gonna be really behind when, they need to do their homework. I think like when we're parents, if we're gonna be parents, um, we should just restrict the bad things that have to do with technology, but let them be exposed to the good things, you know?
I've heard this a
Like,
lot.
yeah,
Sorry, you
you go
finished?
first. Okay, real quick. Like when I was a kid, before I got a phone, I was on a computer, like just on like Khan Academy and like doing like math problems and shit. Like to me, it was really fun because I had never like played, I don't know, like Minecraft or whatever the other kids were playing at that age, you know? So, um, I had like some internet access, I guess, but it was used for good because my parents were super strict about that stuff. You can still do the same thing in the future, I bet. Yeah, that's all. You go.
So your main strategy is to restrict it until a certain age, right? And I've heard that a lot as the main solution to these problems. Like, don't let your kids have it till they're 14, 15, high school, whatever. Um, and I've also heard this I think I watched this podcast on Andrew Huberman. I don't know if you heard the same one about the impact of social media and phones on our health. That was recently uploaded like a month ago. Um,
I think I might have watched it about
yeah,
like how children develop and stuff.
yeah, you watched that one?
Yeah, I think I watched at least part of it.
So the guest listed four solutions, and the first one is no. I think it was like no phone till a certain age, and then no social media till high school or something. But my thing is, okay, let's say you're not gonna give a phone to your kid until he's in high school. Let's say your kid is in middle school, doesn't have a phone, but all five of his friends have a phone. What do you think that will
Yeah,
do
that's
in, let's say, first of all, in terms of the child's development, if he's technically an outcast, right? Because if you think about child dynamics, it's the same as animals, right? There's like these intricate social dynamics that if you're the kid who's weird, who doesn't have access to it, like you'll develop differently in terms of your self-image, will impact your outcomes later in life, right? People who have a positive self-image and who have a superiority complex typically develop better outcomes in life. And if you develop with that poor self-image, like I'm the only kid without it, like do you think that's good for your development?
no. So like it brings up an interesting question, which is like, um, what is normal? Like, what is the normal amount of screen usage for a person or a kid in society? Because I think that changes in the 1900s or the 1800s or whatever, when you're a caveman, the appropriate
Bro, we
usage
weren't
was
cavemen.
zero.
We weren't cavemen in 1800, bro.
Okay, maybe like in the 1200s or whenever we were cavemen,
Dude, we were
like the
cavemen a hundred
appropriate
thousand
cell
years
phone
ago.
usage.
We were cavemen 100.
100,000, no, yo, humans weren't even around back then.
Yeah, we were. Let me see.
But
How old are
like
humans?
anyway,
I
the
want to count down.
appropriate
Sorry,
when humans like became humans.
300,000 years ago. It's been a
Oh,
minute.
really? Damn. But like everything important happened in the last like 10,000 years.
Yeah, Loki.
But anyway,
Last 50 years.
yeah. Like when we were growing up, I think the appropriate usage was like when you're in middle school, I think people started getting their phones and they would spend like a couple hours, maybe every day on their phone. I feel like in order to fit in socially, that had to be you. And like since I got my phone pretty late, I didn't really fit in when, all these kids were on their phones like playing Geometry Dash, whatever. Like things change over time. So in the future, you might not fit in if you're not like an iPad kid. And it might not be like a bad thing if you're always on your phone because there could be like um there's just more benefits to being online than offline at that point because you're going to miss out on so many opportunities like socially when you're developing as a kid and when you're older like I don't know like with your education or your job or whatever.
I think
But I think yeah, for like my own kids or like parents in the upcoming generations, like it'd be a good idea to stay on like the lower end of the curve in terms of screen time and like exposure to stuff.
you're saying less exposure.
Yeah, like if it's a bell curve, if screen exposure and internet usage is a bell curve, I think over time the bell curve is going to shift to like everybody uses their devices more. And as a good parent raising your kid, I think you should also like shift along with the bell curve, but just stay on the lower end, but don't get like left behind. I think that's what you should strive for.
Hmm. Um, yeah, socially, now that I don't use my phone much, I sometimes get scared when I see like younger people using their phones so much because now if I have a big screen time, since I'm thinking about it so often now, since I don't have it, it seems like such a big deal to me. But if I remember back to when I first got my phone, like I'm pretty grateful I did get my phone because it integrated me into the social circle in a way that I hadn't access in the year before. I'll tell you, I think for the first 10 or so years of my life, I was a pretty happy child, but fifth grade was a pretty rough year for me in terms of socially.
Mm,
It's like I was pretty like fucking depressed in fifth grade, low key.
damn.
But I think I started to get better in like sixth, seventh grade, and then I got my phone in seventh grade, and I started using Snapchat. And for some reason, I don't know, it's such a long time ago that I can't give you the exact thing that changed from them. But I remember seventh and eighth grade being these amazing years. I was really happy, but at the same time, I felt so integrated into society because I had all the apps everyone was using, and I was able to play Minecraft with everyone and everything, and that developed me really well socially. Um, but I'm surprised now because now when I have memories of the time, it's like, oh, wait, I was using the devices, but I was still happy, right? So I don't think the devices are inherently a bad thing. But then couple that
No.
COVID-19, when I'm using it for like all day, every day, all night, every night, then it's all of a sudden I hate my life and then the freshman year's ass, right? So I'm not saying
Yeah.
they're completely bad, but um, I think now the kids who use it these days, it's a little bit worse for them because I think something happened in 2020 to the algorithms that kind of fucked everything up. Because I remember when I was
I
on
think it's
stuff,
the
like
it's the short form content, like all the
that,
reels and
I think
yeah.
also the content, bro. Obviously when we talk about these technologies, there's two things we should talk about, right? The method of what's the word for it? There's the content obviously you have to consider, but also the method we receive the content. Um,
Hmm.
and I remember when I was using it, first of all, the method of content wasn't as terrible as it is today because there wasn't any shorts and reels and TikToks. So the delivery of the content was not great, but it was better than it is today. And I feel like the content itself wasn't that bad. Like if I was on Instagram, I'm looking at memes of like basketball memes of NBA memes and just seeing my friends post and messaging on Snapchat. Like it wasn't that bad. But then soon as 2020, now if you go on Instagram, you'll just see like naked woman on your fucking feed and you'll see like all this weird shit that like 12-year-olds are getting exposed to. And I think
Mm,
something happened to the algorithm in terms of first of all, the delivery of the content now is so much more addicting than it was 5 years ago. But it's also the
yeah.
content is so whack now that it's like really, really weird to be on those apps, especially on TikTok and things like that. But when thinking about a solution, I think restricting it, I don't know if I would necessarily restrict it, but I think if you think about a kid today who goes on his phone, why is he going on the phone? Why is she going on the phone? I started to think like that. Like, what's the reason for being on the phone? And
Mm,
a lot of it comes from boredom. A lot of it comes from having nothing better to do. And
yeah.
particularly if you're a child, like, what do? You go and play with your friends. But if all your friends are online, then you go do that, right? So I think a solution could be for my kids. to give them the freedom to have it because I don't want to restrict anything from them. I think they should have the freedom to use it so they don't feel like for example, a kid who's you tell him that you're not allowed to drink, you're not allowed to drink, you're not allowed to drink. The second he gets the freedom to drink, he's gonna drink as much as he fucking can, right? Because he's
Yeah.
tired of being like not
That a
able to
lot.
drink for so long. Unless I don't know. I mean, kids are different, obviously, but I think that if I give him the freedom, obviously not to an extreme extent, but also make sure if he's able to fill his time well or her time well with activities, right? Like my daughter going to sports or my like son going to piano practice or having time activities that they filled. They don't have the boredom to go and do the bad habit, but also just it's hard when everyone else is on it too. So maybe as a mission, you can create it with like trying to work with other people to have to recreate like some of the things we used to do as children, right? Like going outside and playing and biking stuff that kids don't do as much these days. But I think
Yeah.
restricting it, I don't know if it'll help that much, right? Because if you're the only odd one out, like will you develop as a human, you know?
Yeah. I think in the future, if I could find a group of people that like thought similarly, or I mean, think similarly to how I think, like you or other people, and like we have kids around the same time in a very similar community, like I think the kids would have a better life than if they were raised in an area where people don't really consider these like dangers of, you know, device usage and whatnot. That way they're not left out, you know?
And we'll always be able to
That
find.
could be.
There's definitely a
Hmm?
lot of people like that in the world that
Yeah,
find the right communities of people, and
yeah,
so it's a worthwhile mission to take. You know?
yeah.
I think another thing I was thinking about is the power of play um, for kids.
So this is the
I
Huberman
actually didn't even watch that
podcast.
episode. I've
Huh?
heard I've heard him talk about the concept of play, but I haven't like seen any of his videos, like the main ones about it.
Hmm.
Like,
I feel like it was in the social media when he talked about it a
oh
little
yeah,
bit.
it was in that one. Yeah, maybe you're gonna you remember what I talked about then. There was a prayer
Hmm.
when talking about how kids develop when they're trying to solve like problem solving and things like that. You remember that?
Yeah, yeah.
He was talking about that when kids are interacting in person, face to face in a group, then there's so much chaos that happens in the playground, right? Kind of like that matches the chaos of
Hmm.
society, right? That they're playing some kind of game that the game, first of all, they have to create the rules of the game and they have to establish the rules of the game and this is allowed, this is not allowed. And let's say you're playing ice tag and so you tag someone, you're saying, you didn't tag me, you didn't tag me, and there's a dispute. You have to solve the dispute and you can't get adults to help you. And you have to like navigate the dispute and figure out a solution, right? I think that plays teaching children or developing children to acquire the skills they need when they're older, when they're like running, I don't know, businesses or doing work or navigating through society, like they develop the skills of like how to deal with people, how to deal with disputes, how to when there's no authority, like how do you solve problems like that? I think that the play piece is pretty interesting to me as well. What do you think?
Yeah. Yeah, I heard him talk about that. And um I think that's also uh that episode kind of connected to what you were saying about like boys developing and girls developing differently. And like their different motivations and stuff. But yeah, back on topic about the play thing. I think it's pretty important and it's something that like kids are really missing out nowadays um because their entertainment is online. Like um they're not playing outside with their friends. They're just playing like video games inside with set rules. They don't need to like communicate with other people to make their own rules and, you know, proper consequences and stuff like that. They just play by the rules of like a programmed game and they don't need to decide anything for themselves. They don't need to like argue with each other. They just play, you know?
Yeah, man.
And yeah, I think it becomes like an issue later on in life when you're gonna have to interact with people, with your employer or like with a teacher and like I don't know, or you like do something wrong, you like commit a crime, you do whatever, you're not gonna know how to like deal with the consequences and interact with people. Yeah.
So when you watched the Neuralink podcast, did you? I didn't watch it, so I only watched 10 minutes of it on the way somewhere, or 20 minutes of it, and then I stopped watching it. But did you get an understanding of how these technologies work? Obviously, not at the basic specific levels, but more, can you give an overview of like what these technologies do and in specifics about like how they kind of work in a way and what they help us to do?
Yeah, so in that guy, what was happening is basically like, when we move our fingers or something, we're sending a signal with our brain to our hand to like close our fingers into a fist. What Neuralink does right now is that it'll capture that signal, and they use AI to like machine learn that signal into like a different command, like click the cursor, and like clenching your fist equals click the cursor.
And is it because you like click at
And
the same time or something, or how do you associate those two?
like, the researchers are there, and then the guy with the Neuralink in his head is like sending the signal to his hand to clench, and then the researchers are like, telling the AI like
Got it.
this signal is click, because your brain signal is just like, it's just like electricity and stuff. And so the AI is learning, okay, so like this amount of electricity or like, signals firing in your brain, this means this guy wants to click. And it's slowly learning like over time and over exposure to like the guy sending signals to his hand that like you know when he wants to click, he does this. And it gets to the point where the person doesn't even need to move his hand anymore in like physical reality. He just needs to think it, like move my hand, click, and
Hmm.
then the Neuralink will click for him on screen.
Yeah.
Um, but the other thing is like your hands receive signals from your brain. What it can also do, and this is what they're doing in animals right now, is they're using Neuralink to send signals to parts of your bodies to like make them like contract or whatever. Like with the example of a pig, like when the pig is eating food, like the researchers who put a Neuralink in the pig, they can like make him kick his leg back, which is pretty crazy. So it goes both ways. Like the Neuralink can be AI learns when you want to do something with your brain, and it'll like click a cursor and move it around on the screen. Or it could be Neuralink is telling your body to do something, like move your hand, move your leg. So it
Holy.
goes both ways. It can receive and like send.
I'm just thinking, the pig example is actually really scary to me. More scary than
Yeah,
having ChatGPT in our head because what I'm thinking is a situation where a war prisoner gets captured in some foreign country and they put a Neuralink in his head and with the robot they force him to operate at like this productive speed on in the fields or something and they make him like work like a slave. Do you think that's possible? Like will the
it's
person
like sci-fi. It's
even though
possible.
there's a Neuralink that's causing him to move his hand and everything, is there a does he still feel physically exerted and tired? And
For sure.
also, um, if it's since it's a Neuralink activating it, he could probably push the person past exhaustion to death, overriding his internal body's features. So, what do you think about those two ideas?
Definitely possible. I think like that's like stuff that's been explored in like sci-fi media, like movies. You watch RoboCop,
Nah,
it's like, well, it's not exactly the same thing, but it's like a guy, he's like a police officer or something, and then he loses like he's in an explosion, he loses all his body parts and they reconstruct his body in like a robot that they can control, that the scientists can control.
wow,
And so when he's doing something that the scientists don't want him to do, they could just turn him off. Or like make him do things that he doesn't want to do.
that's scary, bro.
Yeah. And like I think it's possible. Doesn't mean it's gonna happen because, there's human rights activists. Like there's a lot of things that we might want to do to like animals, but there's at the same time there's animals rights activists that are fighting against that. Like we can't just like freely experiment on animals doing like whatever. Like there has to be rules and regulations to everything. So I'm sure that's gonna kick in. But yeah, it's I think like scientifically from what I've seen, I don't think it's unreasonable. And yeah, it's kind of scary.
So we've talked about this one. So has there been more than one trial, or that's the only person so far? The guy that's paralyzed.
Test was like I don't know, a few weeks ago maybe.
Yeah, let me look.
And
See.
yeah, since then, like at the time of the podcast, he's the only guy.
Okay. Anyone else has? How many people have tried?
But there could be there's
I think
already
it's just
like
one. I think it's just
to
one.
compute like
Oh wait.
there's other I think with brain to computer like research done on them, like connecting them to a computer, but like he's the one with the Neuralink.
Yeah. What ABC says is that this guy was the first human to receive it, and that
Yeah.
Neuralink is planning to implant two new study participants. So in the coming months. So it's on the way probably.
Well,
Yeah, that's crazy. I was gonna say because even though no one else besides this guy has gotten this technology yet, and it
hmm
seems to have helped him with some of his paralysis issues because now he's able to control things with his mind. Not control things, but control computers with his mind by connecting the human computer interface. I've heard that it could potentially be used for people with other difficulties or other um, like mental faculty or neurodegenerative diseases. Is there
yeah.
any connection between this technology and aiding with these neurodegenerative diseases as well
Um
as Alzheimer's
I
and Parkinson's and all that?
yes, I heard on the podcast they mentioned it, but they didn't really dig into it, and I haven't done any research into it myself to know like the mechanism of how it could help with that. But I can imagine like I don't know if this is something they can actually do, but like what if you could store memories in a computer chip instead of in your brain? That's never gonna like degenerate, right? I don't know if they could actually do that. I'm just
And then they
saying.
have a way to access the
Yeah, but they
chip.
did say in the podcast that it could help with like neurodegenerative diseases. I'm just not sure how.
It's hard to say that it
Yeah.
can because I don't think we know the reason these diseases happen in the first place, right?
Yeah, we don't even fully understand them. And like I think the research for it is pretty slow. Like sometime around last year or maybe before that, they came with like this Alzheimer's drug. Then it turns out it's like really controversial.
There's a fraud too, I think, right?
Yeah.
I think there was
So
a
if Neuralink can help, it's great.
there's this researcher I really like named Max Lugavere. Have you heard of him?
No.
He does a lot
What
of
does he
research
research?
into Alzheimer's and dementia, and
hmm
he just released a documentary that I want to check out. I think last week or 2 weeks ago. I first heard him on a podcast a couple months ago on a podcast called Modern Wisdom, and he was just on Joe Rogan as well. But yeah, he's a fascinating guy. He's a health guy. He has his own podcast too. But I found this research into Alzheimer's and stuff really interesting because we the disease is so unique in a way, and it's one of the scariest things, right? Because the reason I think it's scary is because we think about a human, we kind of know in the back of our mind that there's always that question whether there's something beyond humanity. And we think about the concept of the soul, we think about the concept of our body, and we wonder if like our body is the only thing in this world, or our soul continues to live on in the next life in heaven or in reincarnation, right? But I think emotionally, losing memory can be one of the most frightening things to see in someone you used to love, right? If you think about like someone older than you, like he doesn't remember your name, I think it makes you start to question like, are we more than just these bodies? Or are we just like these computers in our brain that are calculating everything, and all of a sudden something's wrong with the brain robot thing, and all of a sudden we can't like communicate with each other anymore. And I think when the problem is that when they lose, like they forget your name and they forget what date and month it is, like you start to wonder like, is there anything beyond like deeper in this person? Like, is there even a soul there to interact with? And I think it's scary for that
Yeah.
reason. And even when we look at the disease itself, the researchers say that it starts to happen 20 to 30 years before the first symptom.
That's crazy.
There could be someone in our life right now that might go on to develop it 20 years from now, but that's already starting it right now, but we don't see a symptom for 3 decades.
Yeah. My grandpa actually has dementia. It's been like getting pretty bad. It's pretty worrying. Yeah, so I've thought about like similar things before, what you're thinking. But I have a philosophical idea going back to philosophy, which is like and what you're talking about the soul and stuff. Like if you're losing your memory, if you have like Alzheimer's, you're losing your memory, and then like you pass away, and say you have a soul and it goes to heaven or wherever. Like, do you suddenly like get all your memories back, and you know,
I don't
like,
think so.
who are you as a person? You know, are you the person at the end of your life or like at your peak of your life?
I, in my opinion, the beliefs that drive me, that allow me to keep living, is that I think we have a soul, but the soul is in no way connected to our ego. And the ego is this Buddhist term that's defined as our perception of who we are, right? Like if I were to ask you, who are you? How would you respond?
Mm, I'm me.
Yeah.
I'm Ryan. I'm who my memories say that I am.
Like for example, if someone asked me that, I'd be like, I'm Sharia. I'm going to this certain university. I went to Petty.
Yeah.
Right, so like that's who I am, right? But essentially that's just who what my brain tells me that I am, right? Like we think about all the
Yeah.
achievements, but for the achievements, like we don't technically have them with us right now. They're just things that we did in the past, right? So it turns out to be this weird thing, but I think our soul is something different from the thoughts in our mind, right? So when the soul goes on to, let's say, some heaven, for some, we'll say for the sake of this, I don't think that soul is associated with any of the memories in our body, right? And then people might be like, okay, what does it even feel like to be in heaven, right? I think that
Mm.
the best way I could describe it is like, think about deep sleep. It's like this magical, refreshing feeling, but besides the point where you're dreaming, it's just like this peaceful state. And I wonder if death is a similar like it's like a death like peace in a way, separated from memories and just presence and being. If that makes any sense.
Um, the way I think about it, wait, I think I might need to pause 1 second.
No problem.
Yeah. Got my lunch delivered.
All right.
Okay. Anyway, um, how I think about it is like, what does it feel like? Or hold on, let me rephrase this. Like, imagine what you felt before you were born.
I've heard this
What
before.
were you feeling? Yeah, like like nothing, but like more than nothing. You know, it's like actually nothing. That's probably how it feels.
Yeah, man. Um,
That's kind of rough, right?
that's a good thought bubble to explore as well. But what I've thought about when I think about that analogy is that I could have been feeling a bunch of different emotions back then, but maybe whatever I felt then, the second I'm born, like I just forgot all of it, you know. So that could be a possibility too.
Those-
The reason I bring up sleep
Yeah,
as an example is because we don't really talk about it, but we also don't know where the fuck we go when we sleep. Like
yeah, we low-key do it.
like we just kind of
Yeah.
accept that our brain kind of goes in this nowhere, nothing place. Not where we're dreaming, because obviously we only dream for like 50% or less of the time we're sleeping. We're not dreaming, we're kind of just in this, we're nowhere. Our conscious is nowhere.
Yo,
And I
I got
think,
another one for you.
tell
I
me,
got another one for you. Like, how do you know you don't just like die in your sleep and like the next day you won't wake up? Like, what if you're a simulation and you're only simulated for a day? Or like another one is like when you woke up this morning, like how do you know this isn't like your first day on Earth and like all the memories were just put into your brain? You know?
that's a good one. Second one is
Isn't
good.
that kind of wacky? Like you can't really know these things and we don't really know where we go in sleep. Like I guess we know that like our brain waves like change and stuff,
I can
and
believe
like
them
we're not
everything.
conscious anymore.
I can believe them everything. That's believable and very scary.
Hmm.
So I think that's the easier thing to do, right? Just implant memories.
Hmm.
Obviously not right now, but eventually.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I have a crazy one for you. I told this to somebody else, I think, but like, let's say in the future they come up with this machine that lets you relive like your favorite memories.
Hmm.
You're probably gonna go back to the same memories over and over and over again, like thousands of times. Like, what if you could live forever at that age too? You could probably go back and
Yeah,
replay those memories thousands and thousands of times. And
that's
you,
possible.
when you're reliving those memories, you don't know if like you're reliving them or you're experiencing them for the first time, right? And I know you love podcasting, so you might decide to relive a memory podcasting with your friend. And if in the future you replay this memory right here like 1,000 times and you are only living through it in actuality once, the chance of you like reliving the memory is like much greater than actually like living through it. You know what I'm saying?
I have a question that comes to that. So in this, obviously it can go either way, but in your supposed vision for what this could be like, if you're currently in the simulation and re-experiencing a memory, do you have memory of all the previous times you've done it, or no? Or is it like
No, no, it like temporarily blocks out all your memories. So it's like you're living through it. It feels like you're living through it the
the
first
first
time.
time? Okay,
So
interesting.
like what's to say you're not reliving it right now?
Yeah, I mean, I could
You
be.
know?
That is that. At that point, you could just like keep reliving the same memories over and over again, and that could be your existence. Obviously, it's someone feeding you something on the side, like that's possible, right? But I would say that considering life is relative, I would have said, oh, but then the next one would be worse than the worst one. But since you're reliving it, I don't think that's true. And I think you can genuinely feel the same levels of serotonin and
Yep.
dopamine or whatever you felt at the time and genuinely feel that. I just think it'd feel pretty ass if they unplug the machine.
Yeah, it would feel like
Dude, that would
shit.
feel really,
You're like
really
waking
shitty.
up.
That would feel like,
Yeah.
oh, fuck, I'm back here again. Fuck this shit. Um, I, I was sitting in Potter's South when I was in sophomore year in the winter, and I don't know. Have you ever been in that room of mine in Potter's South? Probably not. Um,
Which room in Potter's House?
it was me and Alan.
Oh no, I wasn't in your room, I think.
Yeah, yeah, because you lived.
Actually, maybe. Was it upstairs? Was it
You lived
upstairs?
in yeah, you lived in AC at the time, I think, right?
No, I think I went in there.
Really? You remember? There was like that Finland
Yeah.
poster.
I remember because like I remember seeing your bed in Yang in somebody else's room. Like you were sleeping over with them, right?
Oh yeah, you were there at that point. Yeah, I moved my mattress there.
Yeah. Because you couldn't stand
Um,
out.
I was gonna say I brought up the memory because do you remember like the chair I never built that was sitting right by the window? It was like an office
Kinda.
chair, but it was not built. It was sitting on the ground.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, tell me about
but
it.
I was sitting on there once and I just had this. I was staring at the wall. I don't know what I was doing. It was like some nighttime in the winter and I was cold and I was staring at the wall and I just had this thought, right? Um, there's two parts of it that come together to kind of create this other philosophical theory. But the first part is that we know that time is relative, right? We know that
Hmm.
we think that there's a absolute time, but so much of our perception of time is influenced by this fourth dimension that we don't really understand, right? That we can extend time periods, we can like delete time periods, and we don't really understand how that works, right? So meaning that since time is relative, 7 minutes could potentially be an hour to you, right? If you're in some simulation.
Mm.
It's like right? So we first know that time is
Yeah.
right. The second thing we know is that at the I think people have talked about this before. Obviously, we don't. I think there's pretty good amount of evidence to say this is true. But when you die, you have a around 7 minute flash of all the memories you've ever had.
Mm. I heard of that.
You've heard about that, right? So
Yeah.
time is relative. Potentially, those 7 minutes to me, sitting in your hospital bed, could feel like an eternity, the whole lifetime to you.
Hmm.
You might actually go and live your entire life again. And then you die again, and then you live your life again.
Yeah, that's
That could
crazy.
be the
That's
infinite.
kind of
Like
like
you just keep living the same life for the rest of the time.
Oh yeah, that's insane. That's kind of like the same thing that I was saying, but like instead of a machine that's doing it to you, it's like it's built in
Yeah,
to
it
to
could
like
happen.
our biology.
But
Yeah, and that's crazy because you could die over and over again.
and just
So think about
keep
it.
having the same
You
fucking
only really die one time, but
yeah.
you can fake die like infinite times. So the chance of you reliving it is like way higher than being like in the first, like living through it the first time. You know what I'm saying?
And I feel like from all the things the thing about the scary thing about all the things we're talking about is that they're very, very highly plausible to be true. And if you look at the probabilities, there's a higher chance that those are true than this is the first time we're living. There's a higher probability that either we're living in a simulation or we're living our life over again after death. There's a higher
Yeah.
probability that those are true than that this is the first time
Yeah, exactly. Because there's like thousands or like if
iteration.
it's the memory thing, you can like relive it thousands of times. If it's the before death thing, like it's infinite. It's like a loop, you know?
Yeah.
And simulation, the same thing. Like it could be infinite simulation and stuff. So it's crazy. But like the thing about all these things that it hinges on the assumption that it'll actually happen. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah, that's true. If it will ever happen, then it's most likely happening right now.
yeah. Like the one that I was talking about like reliving your memories and stuff, that hinges on um the fact that like a reliving machine will be built like within our lifetime, right? So like
Yeah, in our
if we
lifetime.
live to an old age and they still haven't built one of these things yet, like we know that, we're not living in a memory. And the
Hmm.
same thing with your one, where it's like before you die, you replay all your memories and stuff. Like, one day we could figure it out, like brain scanning of somebody like passing away or something, and figure out if like we're actually reliving it and stuff. So like all these scenarios, like it can be proven to be true or false.
Yeah.
It's not like we could
The
we have to
second we
work
find
like
out that
work.
one of them is true,
Yeah.
then it gets kind of scary because then they're definitely living through it again.
Yeah, that's crazy. That's crazy. But I'm gonna just live my life.
Yeah, no need to overthink it. It's fun to talk about on the podcast, but I don't go about my day thinking about this shit.
Yeah. No, but even if I knew I was in a simulation, like
Just enjoy it.
shit. Yeah.
I mean, every now and then
Oh,
I'll like look around and like unplug the lights or something to see if I can turn the shit off. But
one last like crazy thought about the simulation one. Assuming we are in a simulation, like let's take a step back. We already kind of have simulations in the form of like games. And like some games like Minecraft or something, like you're just in a whole new world that's more fun than our world in reality, right? And if we're in a simulation, that means like the world that's simulating us is probably like a lot more boring than our world. Do you get my logic? Like
yeah,
we only simulate worlds that are more interesting usually for our entertainment, you know? Why would we simulate a more boring world? So like the world outside is probably that world we were talking about. The people hooked up to a machine, like drinking bugs, you
drinking.
know?
But that's interesting because I guess it goes to the point that if we were to be taken out of the machine, we'd hate the world. Like the
Yeah,
whole planet is covered with these like 2x2 cubicles that we're stuck in. We've been
yeah.
not a human. Okay, that could be
That's
a
scary. Low key,
but
in Asia, it kind of looks like that.
really,
Not a two by two. It's pretty spacious actually. But like if you step out on the road and you look at like all these buildings that look, especially in China, they look
like
exactly the
what, like
same.
Beijing or where?
No, and I went to Wuhan and
Here, let me hold on.
Chengdu.
I'll search a picture if I can.
Yeah. I mean, if you pull up a picture, it's gonna look nice and like
Yeah,
whatever.
let's see if I can find one that describes what you're talking about. Uh, yeah, this looks pretty sick.
No, you see, here it looks nice. Here it looks
What
futuristic
do I
and
search
shit.
up to find out the photos?
Just search up like Wuhan like apartment buildings.
Like this?
Yeah, it's like rows and rows
Yeah,
of
it's very
this.
symmetric. That looks pretty nice.
Yes, like this, like that this picture. Yo, imagine this, like way more.
Yeah, like everywhere, just the whole world.
Yeah. It's low key like the
That actually looks kind of
cubicle.
scary too, because holy shit.
Okay, it's not that dirty.
And that's
It's pretty dirty, but it's not that dirty.
this is very crazy.
Yeah, isn't it kind of crazy?
Yeah, the whole world is covered with this shit.
And right now there's only like 8 billion people. Like imagine like 20 billion.
Yeah. Well, population is collapsing, but that's probably a short thing. Probably go back up after we fix this problem. But I wonder what the population collapsing rates are like now.
No, I mean it's still increasing. What do you mean collapsing? In some countries it's
I think for the
collapsing.
first time it went down. I
Huh?
think for the first time it went down. Let's say US. This is probably 2022. Let's see over the last 10 years.
But the world is increasing as a whole.
I believe so because it's like Nigeria and stuff. I think for the
Mm.
first time the US. Wait, look, it's starting to flatten out. Look at this.
Mm.
No, this is a projection. Wait. Okay, I don't think it's happened yet. I think I was thinking about I was thinking about life expectancy. I think for the first time life expectancy went down.
I saw somewhere like
Yeah, for the first time, like the
we'll
first
probably
time life
cap at like
expectancy went down.
20 billion or something.
For life expectancy's been going up for forever, and then for the first time the last like 2 years it dipped. It's been pretty crazy.
Mm.
Processed food, I'm telling you, bro. All right, man. Yeah, how do we get here?
Yeah.
Anything else?
Not really, but yeah, it's
That's
great
cool,
talking to
man.
you.
Yeah, it's good.
Good catching up.
Gotta sleep. It's almost 11. I gotta wake up at 5, I think.
Yeah, you should get some sleep then.
Yeah,
For
I'll leave
sure.
here at 6 for a flight. Yeah, it'll be fun. All right, man. I appreciate it.
Thanks.
Thank you so much for this.
Yep,
My
of
other,
course.
right? I know it's too late to ask, but here we.
Yes, I can. Okay.
All right, bro. I'll catch you. All right.
Oh, yeah, I'll catch you later.
Peace. If you enjoyed that episode, then you're gonna love this episode right here. Make sure you click here to watch that video, and don't forget to like and subscribe.